Hello and welcome to my video. Today we're going to talk about how the spirit realm moves us as a collective whole. What they do is they put, as what we would call waves of emotions, are sent to us. So then we react as almost a herd, as a collective humanity for different reasons. And we can see this, and I'll talk about this as we'll start now. Have you noticed that groups of people on Earth tend to share the same longing, the same urges towards a common goal? The Renaissance was one collective gasp of intellectual freedom from the bounds of the Catholic Church. It seemed to occur organically. Unbeknownst to humanity, the spirit realm sends out signals, subtle pushes to our minds and emotional state to begin to move us in one direction or another. As an example, according to the Spirit Emmanuel, in the book On the Way to the Light, the Renaissance was planned by the spirit realm to set the human race onto a new path. At the dawn of the 15th century, when the medieval era was about to end, large assemblies of spirits met in the vicinities of the planet to direct regenerative movements, which, in light of Christ's determinations, would lead the world into a new era. This entire regenerative effort took place under his merciful and compassionate gaze, as he poured out his light on all hearts, devoted messengers reincarnated on the orb to carry out loving and redemptive missions. According to a message from the Spirit Arnel, a similar event occurred around the turn from the 19th to the 20th century. The message was dated March 8, 1919, to the Reverend G. Val Owen. Arnel has told G. Val Owen in previous messages about the long journey of mankind toward material progress. Now he presented a new journey that shall begin. It will reawaken spiritual forces and emotions that have been lost for thousands of years. The trend of human development has been downward and outward, toward and into matter. That was God, his purpose, namely, that he manifest himself in detail of form phenomenally. Because this way was downward set, the elements of error increased in greater measure than the reservoir of spirit into which they were poured from earth was able to absorb, assimilate, and transmute. It was, therefore, necessary that on our way to earth we clarify these spheres, and this we did preparatory to our more intensified operations on earth itself. Arnel and other spirits describe the progress of humankind, as well as individuals, to be a spiral. Progress is made, but sometimes through a dramatic event, an invasion for a country, or a rancorous divorce for a person. It seems that all forward movement was lost, but it wasn't. For the episode actually created a firmer foundation to launch the next round of progress. When Arnel speaks about the elements of error, not just on Earth, but in the surrounding regions, he well knows that psychic emanations affect discarnates and incarnates alike, that sometimes the rays flowing from our thoughts need to be tuned. In this case, the entire human race has been pushed to advance their technology, which for the short term meant that a material outlook pushed out the spiritual side of life. This is an unbalance that was allowed to exist so Earth's society could reach where it was guided. Now, and by now it could mean starting hundreds of years ago, for the changes are subtle indeed, the human race is being herded back to experience a collective longing for spirituality. Think of moving the humans on Earth like a mile-long super-tanker. From the moment the helm is turned, the noticeable change in direction is extremely lengthy. We, living for around 80 years in our physical bodies at a time, do not have the field of view long enough to decipher alterations in course. Arnel tells us this guiding is constant and unrelenting. Always Earth is operated on from these realms. This was to be an intensification of those operations, an access of dynamic urge of such degree and impetus as should serve to send the hoop spinning safely down the lower slope and give it a good start on the upward turn on its way toward the peaks across the valley. This has now been accomplished, and the ascent is well begun. Something large was started. Arnell enlightens us more. This commotion increased and extended as we pressed more closely around the sphere of Earth, and ever more and more they mingled in Earth's life and policies until they at last burst through the encircling envelope ethereal altogether and became of the economy of the world of men. A new purpose is starting to anchor itself on Earth. I believe it starts with the sense of lacking, a feeling that something is missing, like the 60s generation who attempted to believe in love and all that implies. But we must realize these are only skirmishes. A battle takes place, and then society pushes back with all of the weight of the entropy of hundreds of years. Although, after the dust settles, a little progress was made. The Reverend G. Val Owen wished to know, was the Great War, as World War I was known at that time, was the climax? Arnell tells him, of that as climax, but ever-increasing force, as I have already said, this war has gone on for these ages past. Its martyrs have been many, and many phases has the war passed through. You would count it strange were I to table for you all of these in total. I name but a few of these phases: the phase religious and theological, artistic, political and democratic, scientific, the warlike phase which took such vogue this last millennium as to absorb well-nigh all dynamics into its wide-open maw. The good Reverend, like all of us, tends to localize great events around themselves. While Arnell is speaking of centuries, we think in terms of years or decades. Arnell is preparing us for our future as humankind. We like to think of prophecy as boiling down to a distinct occurrence. Sometimes that is true, but the stronger, the irresistible prophecy is a vision of the human collective. The spirit realm is guiding us to this future. As sure as the rain falls, we shall arrive there. Arnell gives a glimpse of the destination. For you do dwell upon the earth widespread, and with large spaces unpeopled. So you in total are still but few. We encompass earth about on every hand, and our ranks spread back upward through the steps and stories of the serried heavens. So we be many, and each one of us of power greater than most of you. Ah well, the dawning light will send its rays aloft and search us out in our hiding places amid the light and brightness of the spheres. Then earth will feel less lonely as it rolls along the meadows of the void. Earth will know in that day that all about those meadows fairies plays and elves besport themselves in their merriment, and that earth is not lonely, but at one with the myriads of the redeemed of earth who have linked up mankind with those afar who dwell on planets, some of which you see of a clear night, and others which are not visible to you of earth. Nor will they be until you put off from your low-lying shores and sail your boat towards the open sea, toward the great expanse, toward the western region of the sun. We are being alerted that we, humanity on Earth, will join other planets who have attained a balance of technology and devoutness, materialism and spirituality, wisdom and faith. As we approach these goals, we shall be assisted by other races from other planets. In fact, this prophecy dovetails with the prophecy stated by Francisco C. Xavier in the 1970s, when he told us that if the Earth could live through the next 50 years, starting from 1969, when men went to the moon, that sometime after 2019, the Earth would be openly visited by aliens who would render us assistance. The help from these other worldly visitors won't only be in the form of wondrous gadgets and applications, but also of spiritual knowledge. We shall be exposed to what they have learned long ago, that we are immortal souls who reincarnate to learn and to improve, and that we begin in the spirit realm and shall ever return. If you are interested more in how the spirit world guides us, please read my book, How We Are Guided by Spirits, Book 3 of Spiritism. Book 3 illustrates the ground game of the spirit world via the messages of multiple spirits to the Reverend G. Val Owen. We are presented examples of how the spirit realm above us peers down upon their unruly students. The process of tracking and modifying behavior on an individual and a collective basis is revealed. Even the broader direction of human society in the future is posted for all to see. God bless.